The winner will be announced, followed by an artist talk by the winner of last year's Meitar Award, Gloria Oyarzabal. After Gloria's talk, you're welcome to ask her questions through the chat. You can ask during her talk also, and she'll answer them at the end of her talk. And I'd like to invite Photo Israel's founder and director, Eyal Lanzman, to start the evening.
Thank you, Maya. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us. The Meitar Award for Excellence in Photography is celebrating its 5th year. And this year we received 100 of amazing participants from 30 different countries. And we can definitely say the Meitar Award has become one of the important and well-known photography awards around the world. In response to this challenging time, we want to create a special edition for this year's award without compromising its goal. This year, more than ever, we want to be the platform to the outstanding voices of photographers, regardless of gender, education, age, religion, or country. This year's winner will receive a grant for the publication of a photography book through Blow Up Press, a Warsaw-based boutique publishing house. Thank you, Gash Gush Kusmala, for this cooperation. I want to thank all the amazing photographers who participate in the award open call, to our professional panel of judges who worked very hard to select from all the great projects you sent us, to Gloria, the last year winner, for an interesting and exciting exhibition, and you own us a visit in Tel Aviv next year. To Maya Ner, our chief creator, for a wonderful exhibition at the festival. And most important, we are very, very lucky to have found partners who believe in our dreams. Ofra, Daphna, Aviad, and all the Meitar family, we want to thank you again for the long journey with us and for your big heart. I'm happy to invite Daphna Meitar Nechmad.
Thank you, Eyal. 2020 was an unusual year, to say the least. We all had to adjust to new conditions, new norms, face many difficulties, and adopt innovative solutions. Moving the festival to an outdoor location, a long round fence of a huge construction site in the middle of Tel Aviv, was an excellent idea. Not only that it saved the festival and didn't have to be postponed or moved online, but by doing so, all that rich content is now offered freely to the general public, and for the term of the festival became part of the local scenery. Exposing photography to the public and showing the work of photographers to new audiences is the main mission of the Meitar Award for Excellence in Photography. The Meitar Award came to the world only 5 years ago as a collaboration between Photo Israel and the Meitar family, which I'm honored to represent. My family owns a large photojournalism archive of Israeli classic photographers known as the Meitar Collection. The opportunity to support contemporary photographers is very satisfying to us. In the relative short time of its existence, the Meitar Award went a long way and has become a natural part of the International Annual Photography Calendar. This year it attracted 500 participants from 30 different countries. The pandemic not only moved the festival outdoor, but it also made us change the prize itself. Instead of a physical exhibition, this year the winner will receive a grant for the publication of its own professional photography book through Blow Up Press publishing house, as Rhiannon mentioned. The winner will also receive royalties from the sale of the book that will be launched at the 9th International Photography Festival next year and will be distributed through various professional platforms around the world. Luckily, the Meitar Award jury is the right ensemble of leading international professionals who specialize in the field of photography books. I want to thank each and every one of you for your contribution of time and expertise. A big applause deserve Eyal Lanzman and Maya Ner for their tireless, endless work to produce such an amazing festival in such dire times and promote the Meitar Award. Before I get to revealing the name of the winner this year, I want to stress out that the judgment procedure is totally anonymous. The 20 finalists, 8 women and 12 men this year, whose works are presented now in the festival, come from 13 different countries worldwide. So without further ado, the 2020 winner of the Meitar Award for Excellence in Photography is Rhiannon Adam from the UK on her work, Big Fence, Pitcairn Island. Congratulations, Rhiannon. We will hear from you shortly on your winning body of work. But before I pass the mic to you, let me share my joy from the fact that the winner is a female photographer. I'm pleased that you are the 3rd female winner of the Meitar Award in 5 years. We set a goal to support all talented photographers, but such support is even more important for female artists that still today have to work harder than men to receive recognition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very honored. Thank you.
Rhiannon, can you turn on your video?
Yeah, I don't know why it's not working. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. Is that, am I here? Yeah, I'm here. Hey, thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited. That's great. Yeah, and I like your book collection. Yeah, I'm very excited about the award. I think it's great to be able to finally see this come to fruition in book form. So I'm very excited to be working with you. And obviously, it's very strange not to be there in person, but you know, I guess we have to do it in these sort of circumstances. But either way, I'm really thrilled, and thank you so much. And I'm sure the competition was very fierce. So thank you.
So we want to have a sneak peek of the winning project.
I'm just going to do this now. So I'm going to share my screen. So hold on. Yeah. One minute. I was practicing this earlier, so we could.
No problem. We also have a backup.
I know. Hold on. Is this working now? 1 minute.
No, we have to do the
working, going back to the beginning. I knew this was going to happen. Always like this.
Yeah.
Here you go. This one.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let me go back to the beginning. Just going to play from the beginning. I was just testing it. Okay. So this project has been kind of, I guess, floating around in the world for a little while now. I started it in 2015 when I went to Pitcairn Island. And it's taken a bit of a journey, but to give you a very, very brief outline of what the project's about, it's about 2 sides of this island. It's the dichotomy encapsulated by the remote island of Pitcairn, which is a British overseas territory in the South Pacific. And now there are fewer than 50 people living there. And on the one side, it's kind of perceived globally as this utopia made famous by the Bounty Mutiny. And on the other side, it became very famous in 2004 when a series of very high-profile child sexual abuse trials took place. And so I understand that many of you may not have ever heard of the Bounty Mutiny, but so on the left, you can see this is the HMS Bounty. It was an Admiralty ship, and it went from the UK to the South Seas in 1790. And on the right-hand side is William Bligh, who was a very famous sea captain. And he wrote a journal about what happened on the Bounty, and it became, you know, turned into a book later on. But originally, the Bounty's mission, it was to collect breadfruit plants, which you see on the left, and what they become on the right. And they were taken from Tahiti to the slaves in the plantations in the Caribbean. And eventually the mission succeeded, but the first time he tried, it didn't work out so well. And so this is the kind of journey of the Bounty. So in the middle here, you can see Spithead. And so he started off in Spithead in the UK and tried to go around Cape Horn on this ship. And it was so rough that they couldn't make it around the Horn. So then they had to cross the Cape of Good Hope. They had to recross the Atlantic and go all the way through to Tahiti. And when they got there, they found many beautiful women, which many of the men who were exhausted by this point decided that they didn't really want to leave Tahiti. They thought that, you know, Tahiti was the best place on earth. And this is kind of how the birth of this like idea of, I suppose, the South Seas really began, as this kind of, you know, heavenly, exotic Garden of Eden. And so the men, they didn't want to leave the island. And so when it was proposed that they were going to get back on the ship and embark on their voyage again, half of the men decided that they didn't want to do that. And they were led by a mutineer called Fletcher Christian, who on this drawing on the right, you can see that William Bligh is being cast off the ship with his followers onto the kind of the ship's tender, and the Bounty was stolen. And so half of the crew went on this big mission, and they tried to find a hiding place. So they went to find this place that was unmarked. Well, it was marked in the wrong place on a map. And so it took them 6 months to find it. And they ended up finding this island, this remote island, and they burnt the ship there. And so the descendants of the Bounty Mutiny are still who live on Pitcairn Island today. And this is the book that you know, I was given when I was a child, and I kept it for many years, and I got it signed by a lot of the islanders, which you can see on the kind of right-hand side, all these signatures. But there's this idea that the islanders themselves are these sort of very, very special, gifted, you know, individuals that are worthy of getting autographs from. You know, there's this kind of cult of celebrity around the island, which is very much at odds with what happened later. And this was cemented by the fact that, you know, Clark Gable, Marlon Brando, Mel Gibson, kind of leading men of the silver screen of their respective times, had all played Fletcher Christian, leader of the mutineers. So it really made this kind of this heady mix of kind of toxic masculinity was kind of entrenched in the kind of the mythology that surrounds the island, but also on the island itself. And so where is it? So it is literally halfway between New Zealand and Chile. It is absolutely minuscule. It is 2 miles by 1 mile. And this was the journey I had to take to get there. So this is, you know, number 12 is obviously the UK. And then I flew over, stopped off to get some film and supplies in America and then I went to Tahiti, and then Tahiti on a once weekly flight. And I had to do that journey twice because I had so much baggage that I knew that I had to kind of go on this small plane, drop some stuff off, come back to Tahiti, leave again. It was a big drama. And then I had to travel on this ship that you see on the bottom right-hand side. And this ship is a supply vessel that goes all the way from New Zealand. And it picks you up in Mangareva and takes you to Pitcairn, which is a few days at sea. And then on the way back, I went straight to New Zealand. So it took me 21 days at sea. And if you can like look in very closely at this map, you can see some of the distances to places like around the world on this map. So this is, as you can see from the scale of it, it's very, very tiny. As I said, 2 miles by 1 mile. All of the people tend to live in Adamstown, which is this settlement on the right-hand side. And obviously with my surname being Adam, many people wondered if I was related in some way to one of the mutineers that the place is named after. And to give you an idea of the island, it's very kind of rocky. It's not a beautiful Polynesian island that you think of. It has no beaches. It's just steep sides. It's very austere. It's very imposing. It's a very kind of difficult island, treacherous, volcanic. It's not what you think of when you think of the South Seas paradise. And the project, it got its name from two things. Number one, Big Fence is the name of the house that I lived in for much of my time. This is the house. And it was a very large home owned by Steve and Olive Christian, Steve Christian was the mayor of the island when the sexual abuse trials took place. But also the name of it, it really struck a chord with me because there was a big fence between myself and the islanders, a big fence between Pitcairn Island and the rest of the world. You know, the Pacific Ocean is vast and it hides many secrets. And so I'm going to show you a bit of the project, not all of it because there's a lot of it. And so initially when I started the project, I wanted to make work with Polaroid film, which is what I had become quite known for doing. And so on the right-hand side, you can see an expired Polaroid SX70, and that little triangle in it, that's Christian's Cave. And that is where Fletcher Christian, leader of the mutineers, was said to go and sit up there and watch for passing ships because he was so afraid of being found out. And I like these kind of, very mystical images because I think that they reinforce this idea of the romantic world that we perceive in the outside when it comes to Pitcairn. We have this vision of it being a utopia representing everything that we don't have in our own lives. But the reality is much more like this. It is a rocky, scarred island, very difficult to live on. It's not, friendly in itself. And on the right-hand side, you can see the beginnings of some of the archival material I gathered. And this was an article just about the kind of dwindling and downfall of Pitcairn, trouble in Christian's paradise. And then on the left-hand side of this slide, you see this picture is sort of tangled roots. And on the right-hand side, this is a poem written by a child who, this was actually written in the 70s. And this little girl at the time, she's the sister of Olive, who I was living with, my sort of host. And it just depicts the legend of the banyans, which is the trees that you see on the left. And you know, this tree took on a certain resonance, and this poem is very sort of dark. But this is Steve Christian, and this is why the banyans became kind of famous in their own right as a site on the island. And Steve Christian, these are pictures of him taken as screenshots of an interview he was giving, and also him going into court, because Steve Christian was accused of multiple rapes during the child sexual abuse trials. And he had denied everything, and he didn't want the trials to take place because he was the mayor and he was very important. And then he was found guilty. And this is an excerpt from the Privy Council appeal after they were convicted. And you can see in the top there, Stevens Christian was charged with a total of 10 counts. 6 of these were counts of rape and 4 were counts of indecent assault. 5 counts of rape were proved. And the evidence established that he raped a girl in Jack Williams Valley by the banyan trees. And so a lot of the pictures in this project, you know, they look like something quite beautiful on the outside, but underneath it, they reveal a kind of darkness. So this is a postcard from a similar time, from the 70s. And out of that, 5 of the boys there were convicted in the child sexual abuse trials. And a total of 8 men were convicted in the end, which was half of the adult male population. And so on your right-hand side here, you can see Olive Christian, and Olive is Steve's wife. And I became very close with Olive. And on the left-hand side, you can see a document that is detailing the appeal. And you can see the Queen versus Stephen Raymond Christian, that's her husband. Len Calvin David Brown, that's her father. Len Carlisle Brown, her brother. Dennis Ray Christian, her husband's cousin. Randall K. Christian, one of her sons. So she had 2 sons, the one on the left and the one on the right, who were both convicted of gang raping a girl. And so they served time in prison on Pitcairn. Sean on the right was actually in Australia at the time, and he had to serve his time on Pitcairn. He decided to come back to the island where it was more sympathetic. And in the middle is a found photograph that I think in some ways it's more important to the project than any of the pictures that I took, because it really shows that the island itself was like eroding and destroying so many of these women's identities. And it's similar with this one. I like that this image of a family in kind of recreation bounty dress. You can see all of the women have been erased, and the only person you can really see is the male figure. And on the left of this image, this is Sue, she was brought from New Zealand to Pitcairn as a prison warden to guard the men, because they made their own jail on the island. And on the right is her partner, Paul, who she just married this year. And Paul was like my bodyguard on the island. He has a tattoo on his arm and it says Pirate Paul, Mutineer. This was the prison that they built, and it's actually nicer than many of the properties on the island. And they built it with the exact number of jail cells to house the number of men on trial. And then on the right-hand side, you can see some archive again. And this was a letter written, well, an email written from a kind of a Bounty fan and Seventh-day Adventist pastor based in California. And he's saying to visit the men in prison, you know, give them treats, instill the word of God in them. And on the left-hand side is a picture of Jesus that's left in an empty bedroom abandoned by a 15-year-old girl who left the island at the time of the trials. On the right here, this is Kevin. He is my host Steve's first cousin, and he moved back to the island after a career in the Air Force, and he's trying to revitalize the island. But, you know, he is very much a trial denier. You know, he doesn't really believe that the sexual abuse trials were founded. And on the left, this is the Pitcairn Island hymn, which alludes to the mutineers, but also I feel like it really resembles the kind of situation that the islanders find themselves in now. You know, we own the depths of sin and shame, of guilt and crime from which we came. Thy hand upheld us from despair, else we had sunk in darkness there. It's very kind of powerful when you think of it in that context. And then on the left here, you see this image, and it's of smoke hanging in some palm trees outside of Kevin's house. And this looks like a kind of quite beautiful, delicate image, but actually the smoke is from him clearing out all of the trial notes and documents that he found abandoned in the house that he was taking over on the island. It's very difficult to get building materials to Pitcairn, and so sometimes you can wait several years for ships to pass. And so on the right-hand side, this is a piece of archive which says Brian Young, foreground, Dave Brown, and a clutch of island kids stretch out in the shade for a picnic and corn bake. And both of those men were convicted of abuse of children. And one of those men is the owner of all of the materials that were being burnt at the time in the left-hand image. This is the last child that was remaining on Pitcairn Island. And the excerpt underneath her is actually from the Child Protection Charter, which you have to sign when you arrive on the island, and you have to agree that you will never be alone with children, etc., etc. But basically, each child has a safe adult list, and you have to be on the safe adult list to spend time with that child. And then this is the same child. She's feeding the frigate birds that kind of come as tiny little hatchlings from a nearby island, an uninhabited island. The islanders go there every so often to collect wood to make carvings, and she's feeding them by hand. And these frigate birds, there's this kind of symbiotic relationship between the island and the islanders, and I feel like this image really kind of captures that. And then this is an interesting piece of archive also. This is a telegram that was written in 1939 by a Foreign Office official that was positioned, you know, he was stationed on Pitcairn Island, and he was trying to leave with his wife and son. And it says that the captain of the ship that they were trying to leave on is opposed to taking women and children on the New Zealand run at present. And no woman can be left alone on this island without a protector. It is little better than a madhouse. And that is kind of resembles my experience on the island. It was very difficult with men, particularly being there on my own for 3 months because I was waiting for the supply ship to come back and collect me. And so there was no way off. And then finally, when I survived the journey and I felt that this was, you know, the end, I couldn't quite believe that I'd survived it. And this is me leaving the island. And I took this image just looking over the back of the ship. And what's so interesting about Pitcairn is it's very hard to see the island when you're on it, you know, because everything is so small that you're either on it or you're off it. There's no in between. It's very difficult to photograph it. So it feels claustrophobic, and many of the pictures are portraits, very close in, very claustrophobic environments, all because that is the island. It is kind of this toxic claustrophobic place. And then this here is the presentation that we did at the Photographers Gallery last year. And you can see many of the archival elements were integrated into a wallpaper with many objects and also audio. And there's a 3D tour of that show where you can listen to the audio and watch the video. If you want to take a screenshot of that address, you can actually explore the exhibition that we made. And then you can see some more of the project and my work here. But yeah, that is it.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah. There we go. So like a little overview, but
yeah, no, it made, you know, it made me want to see the book that you're issuing next. Thank you. Also, the situation, as annoying as it is, it allows for things like that, like, you know, hearing about your project right when we announced you're winning.
Yeah, yeah.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's really interesting. And now I'm happy to invite the wonderful Gloria Oyarzabal, whose solo exhibition is showing at the festival these days of her winning project. So I'll say a few words about Gloria. She was born in London in 1971, lives and works in Madrid. She has a master's degree in creation and development of photographic projects from Blank Paper School of Photography in Madrid. And her work has been widely exhibited in festivals and exhibitions worldwide, between them Lagos Photo in Nigeria, Foto España in Madrid, Odessa Photo Days, Helsinki Photo, and many more. Gloria diversifies her activity between film, photography, and teaching. She was co-founder and programmer at the independent cinema La Enana Marron, which is the Brown Dwarf in Madrid from 1999 to 2009. and it was dedicated to the diffusion of author, experimental, and alternative cinema. Now I'm happy to invite Gloria to talk about her project.
Thank you so much, Maya. Well, I'm absolutely, impressed with Rhiannon's project. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's amazing. It's wow. And well, thank you so much, Photo Israel, Maya, Eyal, Daphna. This year it's been so crazy, but 2019, it was amazing for me, and this prize has changed a lot all the projects path, and I don't know, it's been super great. I was like pushing till the end to be there, but I don't know, it's all this year it's been like happiness versus frustration all the way, and I'm still happy to being able to share all this with you. And I saw in the video that the exhibitions are amazing, and congratulations for making this happen. And well, thank you so much. I'm going to go roughly through my project because it's quite intense.
Okay, great. We can see it.
Wonderful. So this project starts well, maybe 10 years ago when I was living in Mali, when I realized that my gaze towards women's issue wasn't the right one. And I was just reacting as a typical white empowered woman. So I had to deal with a lot of frustration, and years later I understood that if I wanted to solve these problems, I had to first center myself and then decenter. So this project, well, it was mainly developed in Lagos. It's during artist residence in Our House Foundation. I knew Lagos from before, but that I spent 2 months there, and it gave me the opportunity of going deeper into what I wanted to talk about. So when I arrived, it was Celebration Festival that it's dedicated to Fela Kuti, which he's not only a musician for the Nigerian people, he's a Superman for them, and so there was a lot of venues around. So I started just going around and nightlife and just watching how women were placed. How they placed themselves, and just talking with them. And then I went into the National Museum, where I found a lot of archives. Archives for me are like I see in Rhiannon projects. They give me a lot of information, and this is the way of talking about the project. And then the third layer of the project, it was this set up studio photos. That it was the first time I went into a studio. So mainly what I was talking about is about the stereotypes, and I did I exaggerated these stereotypes, and all through the way, well, I realized how this imaginary of the idea of Africa was built, how they see themselves sometimes through our own gaze, which is, I think, is kind of diabolic or demoniac. And so I'm talking about all what affected the concept of woman, because colonization, for me, it was not, well, for me and for many, was not only geopolitical or geographical or social, but there was, and there's still a colonization of the mind through the imperialism tactics. And sometimes it has to do with religion, with beauty, canons, with the gays, the white gays, all these monotheistic religions that have changed so much through manipulation of the mind. So I started to read many books written by African writers, feminist African writers, more than maybe Afro-descendants or Afro-Americans. But of course also because I couldn't avoid reading bell hooks or Collins or many of them that are very important. But the experience it's much, very different. So Audre Lorde, for example, she's Afro-American, but I think that there was a kind of relationship so close between gender and race for our gays, and maybe for them, for these women, it wasn't, because the race issue is not so present. So all these, since 2017, when I started, all this process for me has been very nourishing, because I of course I learned so much about how mainstream Western feminist discourses has been acting as a ballast on the back of other feminist discourses, to realize that we can't universalize all these discourses. No? And for me, it was, I mean, I read Oyeronki Oyewumi's, Professor Oyewumi's book that's called The Invention of Women, where she asserts that not before colonization, sorry, before colonization, the privilege in so many African societies wasn't much more linked to gender, but to more to lineage or to age. So that made me think, if we should talk about the oppression of women in a universal way. And for example, this Chimamanda, of course, she's Nigerian and she's a bestseller, and she talks about the danger of the single story, and of course, whiteness became very important in my research, because, and then when I was just finishing the photo book, because last year I won in a festival in Switzerland, in Image Bébé, and so I had 1 year to go through the text, mostly because the images were very, very much close to what I wanted. And when I was finishing the text, all this Black Lives Matter movement came out, and I had so much information and actual information that it was very useful. But it's true that Black Lives Matter in many ways is not meant to be talking about what's happening in Africa. So inclusivity of men, for example, how African feminists, they talk about their relation with men is different as of what we experience. emancipation of women, for example, it's maybe perceived in different ways. Domestication of women, for example, is not seen as a bad thing, as we can see. We can maybe talk about in Western feminism. So for me, it was a very interesting path of maybe decolonizing myself, which is it's a term maybe too abused, used too lightly. But I think maybe my project is much more for the people that experience privilege and without being aware of having it. So when I won the prize in Switzerland, Dianita Singh said that my project, which I was like so flattered that my project was important because it posed more questions than answers. And for me, it was a relief because I wouldn't like to talk on behalf of anyone. It's my experience and what I discovered that I thought it was important to show. So this is the white privilege unpacking the invisible knapsack of Peggy McIntosh. I mean, for me, it was very important to discovering this essay, which she points out like 50 or more points where you can identify your white privilege. And well, it's from 1988, maybe for many feminists, but nowadays feminists, it's like the Bible, or maybe it's old, or so beauty canons and modern girls, modern youth, how they interact with each other, how they live their own way of emancipating or empowerment. Amata, she's a very important African feminist. And this is the book. Well, this was the dummy that I was very lucky because it was the first place I sent it. And so it helped me to go through deeply into my discourse. At the end, I wanted to count on someone, some academics or someone like very somebody that knew very well about African feminism. But at the end, I thought that it came from my own experience and that I was pushed to center myself and talk from my own experience. And I just wanted to show some of the layouts that all these past 3 years I've been very lucky to be able to. So first I did all this experience of laying out in many venues and different places, and then I produced the photo book. So it was a different path. So you see the studio photos, I print them on and I hand them on I print them on fabrics and hang them as curtains. And well, through all these years, I've been just like experimenting the different ways of laying out the project. This was in Poland, in Woods, where I won the Grand Prix. And so here you can see the table with all the books that I offer. All these places where you can sit down, they're all made up of fabrics, the African fabrics that has, you know, that so many of these fabrics have a meaning. And this was in Athens photo last year. And this was in Madrid in the beginning, really in the beginning of the project, where I was just starting to experiment with all the images I had. And this was last year in Oporto. So as you can see, it's a very flexible project because I just adapt to the place very easily. And this was in Alicante, in Photo Alicante, just before all this pandemic crisis, which we never thought that all these exhibitions were going to go out of the box. And they thought it was a very nice idea to put them out. And then all this came and stayed for months without wanted it. And that's it. So that was a very short way of showing it. Like Rhiannon said, it's all these layers. Sometimes it's quite difficult to compress them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gloria. I feel like each time I hear you, I understand a little more, because I think, you know, we understand the basis of it, but we keep getting more and more questions also from people now seeing the exhibitions. We'll send you that you can add to your presentation how it looks outside in Tel Aviv. So if people have questions, please write them in the chat. And meanwhile, I also received some questions for you that I will ask you. So the first one is, what do you think this project should achieve?
I don't know, Maya, that's a big question. I mean, I don't have many expectations with it. But I don't know, Wednesday I did a presentation of it on a photo book festival here in Madrid, and somebody asked me a very similar question. I think that, I don't know, the editor of the book, for example, which he was the director of the master I did, he was presenting the book with me, and he said that he thought that maybe the book should be in all the institutes and schools and libraries, that so people could go through them. I mean, it would be amazing if this happened, but I mean, if people give me a chance to explain myself, I mean, if they read all the text, it has a lot of text. Maybe, I mean, I say I'm not an academic, and I'm not an expert in super feminism and super anthropologist and historian, but I've been doing a deep research on my limits. And I think that if it reaches people who doesn't realize about their privilege, it would, and make them stop and think a little bit, it would be amazing.
Okay, so I'm receiving questions as we speak, like from in different medias. So one question is, I think it continues the last one, is like showing this project in so many places. Does it make you feel you made any change in the world, or do you still feel a white look on Black people?
I mean, I think photography can move mountains. I mean, I'm really very, very, I have a lot of hope for that. but I don't know if my project changed anything. Hopefully, I hope someday it will. Yes, of course, I'm a white woman going to Africa and taking back home all these images. But I mean, I felt that responsibility 10 years ago. But I have to say that, I mean, when I wanted to this Professor Yewumi to write the something for the book, and I was in touch with her, and at the end of all, I show her the photos, and she thought I was again doing the white gaze, and she was like kind of hard with me, and she didn't want to work with me, and I mean, I couldn't, and she told me, why are you talking about white Western feminism and you show African women? But I can't talk about the colonization of the concept of women, not showing what's happening over there, the result of it. But it's not made for the African public. I mean, they're very welcome, of course. I mean, I wish my project could reach all this African public, but it's mainly made for us. I mean, for the people that maybe we build these stereotypes towards the continent.
And actually, one question about the way you build the work, like with this, I know that you work with different photographs, with archives, with studio photos, street photos, and you kind of ensemble them in like collages. So if you can say a bit about that and how you feel that, you know, helps the project, or, you know, why you do it.
I don't know, Maya. I don't know how I did it. It was just like mixed everything in a blender and that's it. No, I don't know. I mean, it's been 3 years, like very, very not hard work, because for me that part is like very easygoing. I mean, I like when I have to struggle with images. For me, the worst part was the text, because I'm not a writer. So when I finished it, I admire deeply all these writers, because just putting one word after another and one sentence after another and making all the block of text together, it was really hard for me. And maybe I mean, somebody that is a writer goes through it and thinks it's horrible, but I did it with my best intentions. But about images, I mean, I arrived home after being in Lagos, not with in a kind of hurricane. I didn't know how to deal with all these big, huge, massive amounts of information. So I think that everything came out. I mean, when I was there, I started experiment. I don't know if you saw these archive images which I manipulate. All that I did it in place. I did it over there because I was very much inspired about the light, about the colors, about the information, about all these conversations I was having. And so at the end, it's like, I don't know, it's like, you know, when you play Tetris, you put all these blocks together and when they go click, you feel it. That's it.
Yeah, it's intuitive. Yeah, I think it shows, but I also wanted to know, you know, if there's anything behind it. And also you got now a nice comment that I think, you know, I feel the same way. She said, it's great to see how flexible the project is without losing its strength. As you said, lots of layers together. So I agree. I think it's a good way to end this unless we get more questions. Okay, great. So thank you, Gloria, so much.
I mean, it's been so wonderful working with you. You will see Rhiannon, they're very easygoing and very wonderful team, and it's going to be super great for you. Congratulations. I'm so happy. And I mean, I will try hard to go next year.
Yeah. We want you to come.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. And thank you, Daphne, for all this support for women photographers.
Thank you and congratulations, Rhiannon. And see you at the festival or online. Everyone, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.